postpone answer to one. Let's open one.
Hello, Yanni. How are you doing? It's Ioannis. Ioannis from Athens. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. I think that was the one.
Now, γεια σας, παιδιά. Γεια σας. Γεια σας.
This is one. That's the one first, and the other one second. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. Then when I want to turn it off, I click. Double click is next. I just go to the next one. Double click, left double click. I'm here. I will come to you. Don't worry, inshallah. Okay. Thank you for the water too. Yeah. Okay. But I keep the one small picture is there. Then showing is the sword.
Yanni, γεια σου. Nice to see you.
Where do you click? Oh, that one, huh? Yeah. You open it? I keep it this one, okay? Yeah. And wanna see, keep it or keep it down? Keep it. Keep it? Keep it. Okay. You will save the work I do. Yeah. What is your name? Bashara. Bashara? Bashara John. Okay. There's no other table we have, Bashara. I think it's a good idea. It would be efficient if we have a low table. Not for me now, in the future. Yeah. It helps because I can put my notes, you know? I hope the divine does not give us any more problems than that. We'll be happy. If that's the worst that will happen, we'll be pretty happy. Okay. Καλησπέρα.
always talking at the end. Yes. And so I would like to invite distinguished professor from William Patterson University of New Jersey, the head of Cotsacos Business College from United States. So, and your applause going to the Professor John Malindretos.
Thank you, Professor Yelena. Dear audience, distinguished guests, nice to see you and welcome. My topic is about the exploitation cost of convict leased people in the United States from about 1863 to, I'm saying before World War II, for lack of better words. Let me explain. 1863, and what we want to show, let me explain in a few moments. What we want to show is what was the exploitation that was made of people, mainly black people, minorities, poor people in the United States from 1863 onward. We just started, gentlemen. Professor Yelena is the moderator, and she introduced me. So, and I follow the authority of Professor Yelena, whom we voted to be the moderator by unanimous vote. So what I would like to show, to talk about is this exploitation cost. And why is 1863 important? 1863 is the year when Abraham Lincoln declared the Emancipation Proclamation. I'm saying all this because you may not be familiar with U.S. history and law. You see, the President of the United States, unlike European politics, which most of you are Europeans, I'm also European to start with, I was born in Greece. The President of the United States has a lot more power than the Prime Minister does. And one of those powers is that the President may do executive orders. An executive order is the President saying something that becomes law until the justice system either rejects it or accepts it. Now, the justice system has the possibility, and I'm not an expert in law, we have experts in law here and they have talked to us before, right? But it becomes law if nobody disagrees with it and it's not rejected. To give you perspective, the Emancipation Proclamation was the law that made slaves free in 1863. They became immediately free. That was law. Now, the Supreme Court has to decide on it. The Supreme Court voted on this a couple years later, and they didn't accept it. But it didn't mean they reversed the executive order. The executive order remained, and slaves were free until eventually the Supreme Court of the United States voted, yes, slaves should be free. So what I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, is that an executive order is a very powerful thing. To give you perspective, presently in the U.S., the present President of the United States, Mr. Trump, is using executive orders. The tariffs he is putting on is an executive order, okay? So it's law. Many people are disagreeing with it. They say it will be rejected and so on. Highly unlikely. An executive order is a very powerful thing. In other words, I'm saying to you that the President of the United States has a lot of emperor tendencies, very different from a prime minister in Europe, okay? Very powerful. Now, it depends on how much the Congress allows him, because remember, it's a three-part structure. Presidency, sure. The presidency, right? Did I touch it? No, it just goes on once in a while. Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, go ahead. You want to do that? So, there is a three-part structure: the president, the Supreme Court, and Congress. Okay? But the president has a lot of power. It does depend on what Congress does. And Congress recently has been a lying dog and allows the president a lot of power. So Congress has the power to offset what the president does. But I repeat, the president has much more power in the U.S. than a leader in Europe does. Okay? Anyway, Abraham Lincoln proclaimed the executive order I told you, Emancipation Proclamation, made the slaves free in 1863. Now, there were states which had started to pursue convict leasing even before, but others started doing it after that. There were 9 states that we are talking about, 9 southern states in the United States. And what did they do? What is convict leasing? Convict leasing is the states would go to the jails and they would say, we want to hire your inmates and we want to use them in our business. Okay? For money. What is the reality of it? They usually paid them no money. They lied. Little money, but they lied. They didn't pay them anything. They worked them to death. When I say to death, I mean that literally. They would work them 70 hours a week, 7 days a week, even though laws were there to allow for 1 day off. They didn't follow that. Those business people wanted profit, and we're going to get it at any cost. They treated them terribly, okay? Sometimes they would walk an hour or 2 hours to go to the mines to work all day. They would get 5 hours of sleep. They would not give them full food. They gave them 1 suit of clothes a year. They would house them in a pit, dark pit, where they would sleep together. They were treating them as they were treating animals. Worse than when they were slaves. Again, it was not only blacks, it was mainly blacks. Poor whites were involved also. But they were treating them terrible. And the reason they were treating them worse than slaves is very simple. Are you hearing me now? They were treating them worse than slaves because of that justice. When they were slaves, they were their property. Very Beshara is my right-hand man. I told him what it means. A person I depend on. Thank you, Lefteris, for Beshara and people like him, the other gentleman. Your name is? Huh? Farhan? Thank you, Farhan. So, it was a terrible experience, folks. They were supposed not to work them 7 days a week, 6. Who cared? They were the law. These business people were the law, and as you know, it holds in every country, right? Greece, right? Anywhere in the world, Lithuania, Poland, right? Politicians are in cahoots with the business people. Sometimes they do dirty business, right, Lefteri? Lots of dirty business. Yeah. So, they treated them terribly. I mean, we started getting interested in this because we saw a documentary a few years back, and it's called Slavery by Another Name. By the way, if you want to read something interesting, that's the book. It was done by a Wall Street reporter, a big shot, Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal is a very respected paper in the United States. Yes, it's ultra right wing, but it's a respected paper. Okay? You also have ultra right left wing, respected papers, but this is a right wing paper. So, and he went to the South and he sat his, you know what, down for a decade and got original research. Research that cannot be found. He found it in the libraries of small cities. And he published a book, Slavery by Another Name. It was a huge seller. And then they made a documentary based on that. That's when we saw it and we got interested in it. A very sad documentary, okay? So what we wanted to do is compute the exploitation cost of this time period. It was not a huge group of people. To give you perspective, in some states, and we have the evidence here, okay, someplace we have the evidence. I don't want to touch it too much and mess it up, but we have the number of people, the convicts. Where is that? Ooh. It must be on the next one, okay? I want to move it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Thank you, Sarah. You see, folks, this is how many convicts were. Not a huge number, right? By the way, I'll tell you how we did it. Okay, we followed some simplicity. But getting the data was tough to find what we call, this is what we did. We got the average wage of a free person, the average wage in the United States at that time in 1 year. And we went to the middle year. And we took the beginning, and we computed the minimum maintenance cost. What's the minimum maintenance cost? The minimum that a human being needed to sleep, to house himself or herself, and to eat, okay? And we subtracted the two, and that's the exploitation cost. But because we wanted to do an annuity approach, we took the beginning and the end, we divided by 2. Actually, we did 3 observations, beginning, middle, and end, divided by 3, and got the average minimum maintenance cost. We subtracted it from the average wage, and we got the average exploitation cost per person. And multiplied the average exploitation cost per person times the convicts. As you can see, folks, not a huge number of convicts. I mean, the biggest one is here, right? 15,000 or so. But this is over a long period of time. Depending on the state, it was a long period of time. No, this is the total. 9 states. 9 states. And as you can see, the longest is 82 years. Second longest, 57 years. So it was a long time that they were exploiting these people. So we took the exploitation cost, assumed it was an annuity, and found the total exploitation cost per state for the number of years that we had, based on the assumption the number was the same. Again, an approximation, as you know. But I'd rather be approximately right than exactly wrong. I don't know about you. So we computed the number, and basically we took that number of each state till the end of the exploitation period. That was the annuity. And we got the exploitation cost at the end of that year, right? Let me see, I have the numbers there. Oh, it doesn't go further? I thought I had. Oh, yeah. This is, if I hadn't gotten Tashara here, I want, oh. It doesn't go, I want that arrow, right, Tashara? This one? Yeah, yeah. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, yeah, that's the last one. The average total exploitation cost per state. Okay? We got that. And we assumed it was an annuity, as I said, and we computed that annuity, the exploitation cost of that annuity, by the end. The end, depending on the number, the particular year at which that state ended the convict leasing. Different states ended it at different times. And I showed you, you see the active years of convict leasing, different states ended it at different times, and we have that. If you want to see that, we have that here. Yeah, you see, right there. The start year and the end year, depending on the state, okay? So the last year that it ended was this year, 1928. And which state was that? It would have been better, Pasharani, if they had a bigger control paint here, because it's not easy to control it. Right? Yeah, you agree. And you're the expert. I'm glad the expert agrees with me. To the left, please. To the left a little bit. Yeah, Alabama. Yeah. Oh, Alabama is famous for this type of thing. So then what we did is very simple mathematics. We took that exploitation cost at the end of the year, and we simply moved it to 2026. Find the exploitation cost per state for all the convict lease, and we just added a total. Now, obviously, it matters what the interest rate is, right? So since we don't know the exact interest rate, we assume three interest rates. 6%, 9%, and 12%. Why? 6% is what the average rate of return on AA bonds in the U.S. has been, historically. 9% is the middle, 12% is what the S&P 500 has returned approximately over 100 years, per year, including depression and everything. It's a little less than 12%, but about. So we got some amazing numbers. The number we talk, yeah, with 6% Lefteri, God bless you, it was about 2 trillion, the result. In other words, the total cost of exploitation of leased convicts in the United States, with these approximations we made, was about 2 trillion. If you go to 12%, it becomes exponential. It's an exponential function. It's many trillion. But I feel comfortable with 6%. AA bonds. If they had invested in the stock market, it would have been much higher. This is so bad, folks, just to add one thing. And as I told you, it was whites and blacks, but it was mainly black people that they did this to. Okay? But it was so bad, there was a white kid, forget his name. If you write to me, I will send you the information. This white kid was from the Dakotas or Minnesota, and he hopped on a train. He didn't pay for the ticket. He hopped on the train, and he was riding. Young man in his 20s, right? You may have done the same. I may have. I'm not going to tell you, but we could have done something like that. Yeah, I mean, a big crime. You're hopping on the train illegally. Ooh! And they caught him. They put him in jail. I think it was Florida. They were beating them. I didn't tell you that part. Not only did they treat them terribly, they were also beating those convicts when they had them in the mines working. They beat this kid so much and he died. I think the whipping was close to 100 lashes. I mean, a vicious, evil warden gave him 100 lashes, and the kid died. 22, I think he was. What's so sad and ironic is his parents had sent him the ticket and the money to pay the fee for the prison. So he would become, free. Whatever happened. I'll show you what happened. You got the point? It was cash then. It was not that digital stuff. We had digital stuff talking about here. It was cash. The money disappeared. He was killed. An uproar happened. When that happened, people, started complaining and demonstrating. And the governor of the state stopped it immediately. Okay? So it was a terrible experience. One more thing to complete the science, so to say. And we are in the process of completing this in the next few weeks. We assumed, because of the terrible experience I told you, and by the way, there is a book and a documentary on this. Slavery by Another Name. The guy, Blackmon is the author, big shot in Wall Street Journal, spent a decade doing this good research. Original research which didn't exist. And then they made the documentary. Okay. They were granddaughters of the business people I have described to you. Obviously, I don't need to tell you they were not good people. These were evil business people, okay, who simply profited from an outrageous, unjust behavior committing on human beings, whom they utilized for exploitation. And these granddaughters, they interviewed them for the documentary. And they said, well, I thought my grandfather was an honorable and good person, and he made money, but he really worked hard for it. And then I found out the truth. They couldn't get out of their house for a few weeks. They were crying. It was a very sad documentary, a very poignant and powerful documentary, but it was true. One thing that could change the data, will change the data and our results to the downward side. What is that? We assume, because of the extreme behavior of the business people against these convicts, that they didn't give them full food. If I remember correctly, about 10% of them died per year. 10% over 4 years is 40% non-compounded death rate. 1,000 start, 600 remain. These are the numbers, folks. So then we said, okay, if that's the case, perhaps they were not feeding them full meal. So we assumed that we gave them 2/3 of their meal. What we'll do next is, and of course it will enrich the paper, we'll include the full meal, just to get some sense of the data and the results. So obviously it will lower the result, but we don't know if that's the truth or not, because again, because of the terrible, behavior they committed against these people, maybe they gave them 2/3 of the food, not full food, and they were dying 10% per year. Okay? So just to get a scenario analysis, a couple points, get an idea. That's it.
Conference, as a keynote speaker.
Thank you.
Yeah, who's going to take it? Done. Thank you. Okay.
Oh.
Back.
Okay. One more comment I'll make. We are interested in now slavery. Our next paper is we are working on the exploitation cost of slavery. That number will be huge, folks. I showed you a few convicts, right? Slavery, there were even 4 million slaves being exploited. But the exploitation cost for them will be less because, as I said to you, because these business people saw them as property, they even provided medical care for them. They did not provide medical care for the convicts. Because they said, oh, they die, we'll get another one. Very easy. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanis, for coming from the States to present your research here. We appreciate it. Okay, we're going to the next presenter. Yes, this guy.
This one?
No, the other.
Is this one?
Oh, here you are. Hello, Yanis.
Hello, hello. Nice to join.
Okay, very pleased having you. Okay, let me introduce you, Yanis, and then the floor is yours. Dr. Yannis Ioannis Takmatsidis, Malama Institute for Psychological Applications in Greece, International Center of Ophthalmology, is a psychologist, psychotherapist, and neuropsychologist. That's why he's a friend of mine. with long experience in education, clinical practice, and consultancy. He taught psychology at UK universities such as King College, London, Cardiff, South Bank, and others. He worked as a psychologist in London and a researcher for the US government in several projects. His studies include a PhD in cognitive psychology and neuropsychology, MS in psychology of education, in research methods, and masters in business administration. This is the point where I met Yanis, when he was one of my students at Open University of Greece, Aleka. Yes, he got his MBA with a research topic, how to create, Yanis, I'm right, a business plan for his business. So we worked together, and after a couple of years, he came up with a beautiful institute and a very dynamic, known all over the world. Yanis, sorry, I just sent the story, okay?
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Okay.
This is how you do everything. In whatever you participate, you make it so vibrant. Because this is it.
Okay, thank you. He is involved in a series of professional specializations and international collaborations in the field of psychology, psychotherapy, management, and he is accredited international supervisor and trainer fellow in international therapy, interpersonal therapy. He is author of scientific books and articles. Other activities include numerous professional trainings, academic lectures, workshops, and public presentations. He has developed an institute by the name of Istamology, having in mind that our character and our behavior depends on where we stand. Istame in Greek means where we stand. So we istame, so I have some certain characteristics. So istamology means that we stand from there. Is that right, Yanni? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, you are going to discuss it. Scientific committee member of international conferences, associate fellow of AFBPS, and charter member, Psychol, of the British Psychological Society, member of the International Strategic Management Association. So his last title is with us. Thank you, Yanis, for being with us. We're here to enjoy your presentation. I just informed the audience to be careful because Yanis has the ability to make conclusions on our face or how we behave on and how we sit. So please protect yourself. Okay, Yanis, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello to everybody from Athens. And really, I don't know how to share this opportunity to be part of this vibrant community you have created there. I can see many videos and photos, and most of all, the conference throughout these 2 days. Thank you very much for this. So I would like to say that in most times, what we try to achieve is something that we try. Why psychology, first of all? What happens is, I could say that economics, they are a societal social science. Why I say this? With the use of AI, I can see that it says social relates to immediate the personal dynamics and relationships within a society, while societal refers to the larger systemic structures and issues affecting society as a whole. I think there is a shift nowadays that it's not only a social science, economics, they have become a societal social science. I have made this slide in order to show that how is focused in the social aspect with all these important people of economic theories, and talks about moral sentiments. It talks about moral science, expectations, wishes, insecurities. And this is actually where I would like to, and behavioral economics, of course, a blend of psychologists and economists. Though, maybe this is the excuse to present in an economic conference. I don't want to, I must mention, though, that my purpose is just to stimulate the discussion, just to stimulate the discussion. So let's start with that. That is from a T-shirt, actually, that my wife bought me this summer. And I thought, that's an interesting picture. Can you hear me? Is everything all right? Okay. And I was wondering, what is this about, this managementization? Let's find out. This T-shirt gave me the idea that obviously you can all see who is the manager. He's trying to balance himself at that rope, on that rope. So I see that this person is the manager, the rope is the management. The interesting thing is the whole of this picture, with these hands that hold the rope, it is managementization. This is how we're going to build this new term, the managementization, and try to explain how I see it, not only in philosophical terms. In this slide, you can see that there are some theoretical and practical terminology issues. In my view, we have moved from digitalization and globalization to digitalism and globalism. Actually, I'm sure that we all enjoy the dynamic processes of digitalization and globalization. Though nowadays, after having more specific procedures like ESG and AI, it appears that there is an acceleration of progress, because it is progress. But I was wondering, is it too fast than people could accept or even follow? Maybe. So, because they are somehow enforced, they have started to be from processes that we could enjoy to become systems like regimes. And I was wondering, are they really global? Do they respect all the cultures? When, for instance, we enforce ESG procedures or AI procedures? Where are they happening? Where exactly this happens? Does it respect the cultures? And I think that after all, management could turn to managementization, exactly the opposite. Management could be seen a more static, dynamic, maybe situation. I'm sure that you all know, and better than me, that it involves many procedural processes. But in my view, we have moved now to managementization. Through digitalism that has been enforced somehow in all the processes, ESGism and AIism, I think we have led in a not volatile, but an interesting period that management have moved to be managementization. Now it's the processes that actually could be seen enriched by these procedures that have been enforced as regimes, not just procedures. Of course, management has been affected by, in all its parts, we can see here in everything, in plans, marketing, in whatever. So we could see that this enlargement of managementization as a process that's changed because technology changes very fast and you have many changes in a very fast pace. That's why we need to see maybe management as a fully fast process. So there are, in my view, some crucial factors to consider. Time and timing that these things are happening. As I said earlier, cultural principles and characteristics. And most of all, what exactly and where and who, for whom, and by whom? Who actually is doing that? Because in my view, maybe we should consider that this is called the fallacy of synthesis. We have the impression the more solid, the more stable and secure. I'm not sure if we all agree on that, because if there is a crack somewhere or not all the people follow, then we have some problems in the way that we could see the stability of the systems. And as I said, economics, they are a societal science, to include both terms, as I explained earlier. Now, I was wondering then, how ready we are? Because we need to become ready. And somehow, through regulation or whatever, we need somehow to create a new common frame of how we see things, but all of us. Because if we don't see that way, and we don't respect the timing and the time that these changes are made, then we have these three consequences: cognitive dissonance, emotional difficulties, and psychological unrest. Actually, these lead possibly to rejection. And it's a pity, because we have a very, very interesting period that we live in. So, then I was thinking the way we relate. Do we really relate globally? And what type of relationships we have could be one of these four relationships. I haven't concluded really which one is more important, but I think the participatory one really could motivate people. And then, of course, we have all this period, the negotiation that is happening. And I was wondering, the negotiation types, which one we experience right now. I'm not talking only in geopolitical terms, but as well as in the societal mind. Yes? Hello? Okay. Excuse me, I didn't hear? Okay. So that's why, in my view, we have and we should employ different strategic and communication management strategies. And this is where possibly people who lead all these developments need to have specific trainings to address the way that most people could participate and actually enjoy the benefits of these things. First of all, I should say that managementization and AI, I will try to relate managementization using some concepts that are very popular at the moment. First of all, we should accept that AI actually advances our lives. In my view, that's a fact. It advances. There's no need to be fearful about these things. Let's see some characteristics, though. We may see here that one of the things that possibly should worry is that they do not understand or care about the content they generate. I could choose this one. On the other hand, let's be relaxed. It is a product created by human intelligence. It is a byproduct. Let's relax and use it the right way. Because, as I said earlier, if not all people accept somehow, or most of the people accept what is happening, it will lead to rejection. Now, I was wondering, on the other hand, about the AI. Is it the technology of the mean, guided by mass learning? And then what about the competitive or comparative advantage? Should you have it all or not? Do we all have access on that in order to go ahead? And of course, how ahead is defined. And in my view, I chose an example. We all know this Gauss curve. And let's relate it to R&D, research and development. In my impression through my studies, I had the impression that the interesting things do not lie in the mean. They lie at the outliers. The outliers are the most important things, in my view, could say about between the two and the second and the third standard deviation, regardless if it is one or the other side. Let's see. We should all accept, in my view, and agree that science and economy progress from outliers. They expand the limits. So outlier information exists, but is not publicly available. Because publicly, as I said earlier, I've got what is social and societal. Just a paragraph. The thing is that maybe these outliers that will promote even further advancement could be seen as a commodity. I don't know if that's an idea or not, but these outliers are not to be thrown in the bin. Maybe it's a new commodity. I wouldn't like to see it as such, but maybe it's a bad idea to share it. But in my view, that's something important to consider. Let's move to managementization and ESG. Again, this regulation is very important. It tries to create a structure. That's very important. Many colleagues talked about this. So exactly as it is referred, responsible inventing and impact investing, in my view, maybe because I'm not an economist, I'm not sure what exactly and where exactly they focus. And this regulation has created something that moved management, or at least created a framework for management and governance. So there is a preset regulation, very compact, must be implementing, perform, assess, and evaluate. So, in the past, in the management, we had the internal locus of control. Actually, the differentiation of the manager maybe was creating an idea that he's a wise person or she is a wise person. So manager was doing the management. Nowadays, in my view, we move forward in a way that maybe there is an external locus of control through the needed regulation. In my view, you need to find a balance on that. And then, is it actually the manager to manage the governance? I'm not sure about that. If the governance manages the manager and the role of the manager, through compliance, of course. So, if we see things like this, then we have some differences. This is the manager in one column and the other the governor. I chose the rule of law that is very important. Of course, the manager was under specific law, but now it appears this regulation and the need for compliance in good standards, yes, through globalization that many societies should step in and countries, through globalism, then we have this rule of law that plays a very important role. What happens then to the manager? Maybe, at one thing, the manager should say, I should do this one. And on the other, something contradictory. In this case, I have many actually people that come in my office and they say, I have depression because I was told that I need to fire the 25% of my staff, and we are doing this through certain assessment and all that, through AI or AI techniques, or not only AI techniques. Because as you said, AI advances our lives as technology. So the result, on one thing to do something, and on the other to do something contradictory, it's like I lose in both scenarios. And then we have a confusing procedure that actually questions, who am I and what am I doing? This weak ego faction may create problems because we have a manager from decision maker has become manager just maker, following, as we said, more specific and maybe the extreme rules. On the other hand, you have the manager strategist who has become the manager what? I don't have the answer on that. Again, I think in these new roles for managers, these tools, the regulation, AI, ESG, or whatever, compliance standards, they need to be trained and overcome these problems on how they see management. So we try to devise certain things. We have, in my view, we need to differentiate. There are strategies, specific strategies. We have the cognitive strategies. Yes, explicit rules and all that. I will overcome this. We have the emotional strategies. And this is where we have a development or well-being psychological culture. How is this created? Because you need the development of trust. Trust means more participation. This is key for high performance and motivation in teams and organizations. This is where maybe we have devised here in the National Center of Ophthalmology a technique, a model, IRIS strategy, we call it, where we have information for an event or something that needs to be done for an action plan. We implement the regulation, and then we have the interaction, and this blend creates a framework for people to cooperate. These people take the feeling that they belong. They just not take part or participate. They belong. This is, as we said, creates motivation and productivity. What is syntactics? We see and we have devised that syntactics maybe is a good word. It comes from Greek language, which means syn plus tactics. And we have this syntactics in order for people to cooperate, people from technology, people from information processing, from human resources, from mechanics, economists, and they all create some tactics, of course, and the manager decides that. It's so high acceleration of the developments that we need to have syntactics regardless who is going to make the decision, who obviously is going to be the manager. I say here like planting many trees in one pot. But roots need to find their space, and this is where we need maybe some time or training on how to promote this. Change management and technology. As you say, technology promotes our lives. Regardless of some other things we may say, there is this danger, the other. They are there to solve them. So, in my view, we have like information transmission, which happens very fast. And this is, on the contrary, on processing, assimilating, and reprocessing the information. This is where it becomes very fast. And then we have like a dilemma. We have humanizing digital life or digitalizing human life. This is a balance that we need to find, and hopefully, I don't know which one we would choose, but there are some consequences, and we need regulation because of this hazy knowledge that actually create them in our lives and how societies are structured. On the other hand, how ready you are for global management? This social readiness is very important. We talk about circular economy and public health. I was wondering, this is where actually I see the ESG as a very interesting type. Let's say the environmental, and then comes social. No use of plastic. Get rid of the plastic straws, for instance, or plastic bottles. Yes, but are these good for the middle number, the social from ESG? The problem may be that having the governance, which is as good as a regulation, to promote the systems, how they work, and our lives, of course, in my view, it is associated very cleverly with the environment and society. And exactly what should I decide? Should I accept the paper straw or not use the plastic water bottle? But it's there as well. And we're talking about circular economy. This is where there is a weak ego. How should I decide? The double bind hypothesis I explained earlier. Should I save the planet or myself? This needs to be explained. If they are not explained rightly, then we have this kind of process. We have an event or information. It appears threatful, creates insecurity. We have stress, anxiety, fear, phobia, and panic. you are very much experienced about stock exchange markets, how they could change after one decision in 1 day, 1 hour, or while you're doing the bank stress tests. The problem is, if something remains for much time, I will not define time on that, in anxiety issues, then there are 3 consequences. One is we all make negative scenarios and negative thoughts. Second, we make a generalization of this negativity. And the third, our self-esteem is lowered because we say we cannot fight that. This is the rejection I was talking earlier. We need to, in my view, to address these points, not to happen in the societies or in countries regarding cultural characteristics. Now, I would like as well to talk about a couple of things about neuromarketing. Neuromarketing is there to influence consumer behavior. We have AI as well. So what exactly we are trying to do here? Because there are some principles for brain, and apologies for this, I'm a neuropsychologist as well, just a couple of slides. If we see the brain like this, and we have memory, we have two issues there, the storage and the remembrance. Of course, we all know how remembrance could come and not storage. I could explain many nice research on that, but we need to consider that there is an initial registration, a retention, and retrieval. All this, if you lose your psychology, I'm not sure what, maybe that's not marketing, should be something else. That's why we may say it's nice, and now with the use of AI, maybe regulated or not AI, we may have like manipulation in marketing, or that's progress. It could improve many things, but needs to be addressed maybe and work properly, whatever properly means. Actually, the regulation we've seen in AI, I'm sure that you are aware, in the US is based in other principles, like market principles. The regulation in Europe is like human rights, like we need to protect this. In Singapore is more or less a middle situation. So there is no framework. If we just see the regulation throughout these areas, they're not the same. Hopefully, they will converge somewhere, but not at the moment. And this is where it could create a competitive or even comparative advantage, and we may see that, like how China progresses and how Europe or US are progressing with other standards. So, we have as well, the managementization is a process, and we're talking about risk diversification. I was wondering, you are there to think, and obviously you are more relevant in terms of your science, so high-profile economists there. Does it actually allow competition in economies? There are discrepancies. These discrepancies, we know that they promote motivation and mobilization. But what about the risk? Is there a risk diversification, or we all go towards the median or the mean? Thinking as well that trying to touch a bit of game theory interaction, we have created this need for or motivation from the 3 things. Achievement, affiliation, power. We may see that even today in geopolitics or in politics in general. And especially last year, we see that. We have cooperation or competition. And then we have these interacting dilemmas. I think that maybe the most obvious to exclude that we are in such a dilemma could be dominance versus submission. The other things we could play and manipulate with those, but dominance versus submission is something to be seriously considered. Why? Because risk as emotion and risk as analysis, we know from research that the emotion is faster than logic or reasoning, which means we may have a cognitive dissonance coming out from anxiety of having to make a decision. And this is something as well for the manager, as well investment or decision making, and of course the risk. I was talking about epistemology. That's why just 4 words I would like you to see, because that's fair to talk about epistemology. There is in the title as well. This is something we have devised here with Anastasia Malama quite a few years, and we built on that model. So there are 4 words. There are some four quantum mechanic principles, as well as 4 psychotherapeutic frameworks, and you have developed epistemology. Is the way I stand and interact, exist, not only interact. That's why psychology is societal social science. So just see the words in the parentheses, not to talk too much about this. We have interaction between myself and the system, or someone in the system, or an employee, or a citizen in the system. Out of this interaction, we create some habit and familiarity. This is where common logic and culture is created. And of course, then we have the structural changes through the tunnel phenomenon. What happens though in tunnel phenomenon is that, like a train on a tunnel, we say always reduce your speed, because the speed when you are in a tunnel may explode the train. This is a structural change that if you allow it to happen that way, then you lose both the tunnel and the train. On the other hand, a tunnel makes you go faster if you respect the tunnel and the train and just, have less kilometers to go and reach your destination faster. Always, that's one slide I really love. Again, with all due respect, I have a question though. Why is square should be circle? Why to allow some pressures, like the ball when you play football or whatever? Okay, there are some pressures. We see that maybe there is a problem here, but then again, the system will come again in terms. Here we have a corner and actually damages itself from a crisis. It's difficult to have it square again. So maybe you are so high profile and highly esteemed economists there, maybe try to say that it's better to see it as a circle. Now, in this view, and that's one that I finish, is like we have strengths and weaknesses. This refers to myself or to yourself or a system. Need to find strengths and weaknesses. And of course, we have the environment with opportunities and threats. During crisis, imagine that we have the weaknesses and threats become bigger, and then there is no space for strengths and opportunities. May I suggest, with all due respect, that let's focus not on weaknesses and threats, because like ESG regulation or whatever, or AI, whatever we have discussed, and we see nowadays like, oh, what's happening, and this, we will lose this, that. Okay, we may, but let's see it as going as a progress. So let's focus on strengths and use them as opportunities. The wise people, common logic says, make the crisis an opportunity. If we were in a crisis nowadays, we have an opportunity. I'm sure conferences like ICABE play that role. So, should we focus on procedures in the application of management, or on processes into the application of managementization in a more volatile period that actually need to address processes rather than procedures that may play a role? The rule of law, we need it. On the other hand, the process creates all this development and advancement. Thank you very much. Just to stimulate some discussion, that was my purpose, and I'm all ears to hear so interesting things that you have shared, all of you in the conference, and really very much appreciate to be part of this.
Thank you very much, Yanis, for your thoughtful presentation. We appreciate your participation in ICABE. Nick, good morning.
Yes.
Yes, good morning,
Hi.
Nick. Hi. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, right?
It's earlier.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
You are in
Yes, you
Los
can hear
Angeles,
me.
not
Great.
in New York.
I am in San Francisco, actually.
Oh, okay.
And they just changed the time a couple of days ago, and we got to a different time. So now it's actually 6:09 a.m.
6
Okay,
o'clock. Okay.
I'll put in my share. Hold on. Let
Let me
see if
introduce Nick. Let me introduce
yeah,
you.
sure.
Give me 1 minute. So, dear friends, Professor Nicholas Economidis is an internationally recognized academic authority on network economics, electronic commerce, and public policy. His field of specialization and research include the economics of network, especially telecommunications, computers, and information, the economics of technical compatibility and standardization, industrial organization, the structure and organization of financial markets and payment systems, antitrust application of public policy, network industries, strategic analysis of markets, and law and economics. Professor Economidis has published more than 100 articles in top academic journals in the areas of networks, telecommunications, oligopoly, antitrust, product positioning, and on the liquidity and the organization of financial markets and exchanges. He holds a PhD and MA in economics from the University of California at Berkeley, as well as BS first class honors in mathematical economics from the London School of Economics. Previously, he taught at California University from 1981 to 1988 and at Stanford University 1988 to 1990. He is editor of the Information Economics and Policy, Netnomics, Quarterly Journal of Electronic Commerce, the Journal of Financial Transformation, Journal of Network Industries, on the advisory board of the Social Science Research Network, editor of Economics of Networks Abstracts by SSRN, and former editor of the International Journal of Industrial Organization. His website on the economics of networks has been ranked as one of the top 4 economics sites throughout by The Economist magazine. Professor Economidis is executive director of the Net Institute. We have the website here if you are interested. A worldwide focal point for research on the economics of network and high technology industries. He has advised or is advising the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, the governments of Greece, Ireland, New Zealand, Portugal, the Attorney General of New York State, major telecommunications corporations, number of the Federal Reserve banks, the Bank of Greece, and major financial exchanges. He serves on the advisory board of the Economist Intelligence Unit in the States. He serves on the advisory board, yes, and he has commented extensively in broadcast and in print on high technology, antitrust, and public policy issues. In fact, Nikos is every morning in a TV station, either in New York, Los Angeles, or San Francisco, or Washington. Nikos, thank you for being with us. Thank you very much for your participation and support. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me well. I am sharing my paper. Thank you, Eleftherios, for a very nice introduction from me, generous introduction. I want to talk about a paper on interoperability among mobile money networks. And it has been written with Professor Przemek Deziorsky of Berkeley. But unfortunately, very unfortunately, Przemek was killed in July 25 in Athens by a conspiracy organized by his ex-wife. So the boyfriend killed him together with some foreigners who were assisting him. Uh, we, Semek and I had worked on a number of topics, but unfortunately, as I said, he was killed and he's a dear friend. Let me talk about this problem. This is about banking using phones, using cell phones in Africa and other areas. So there, the majority of the households do not have a traditional bank account. And what happens is that the phone company, once they get a phone, they are given a bank account attached to that mobile number. And each of these telephone companies, and I'm looking specifically in Tanzania, and there were 4 major telephone companies there, and each one of them creates its own money, and which can be transferred among the people in the networks. So what do I mean by that? How does this work? You have cash, local cash called Tanzanian shillings. You take them to a kiosk, they put them in your phone. Then once you have them in your phone, you can electronically transfer them to anybody who's in the same telephone company's network, however far away he is. Then once he gets it, he can transfer them to somebody else, or he can cash out and get Tanzanian shillings again, or he can pay electricity bills, telephone bills, tuition, and so on. Okay, so, and traditionally, the networks were incompatible. But at some point in time, in September 2015, they became compatible. That is interoperable. You can transfer money from a customer in network A to a customer in network B. And this is the focus of this paper, thinking of how to model this and so on. Okay, so I already talked about how the exchange happens. You get Tanzanian money to money of company A or money of company B. It's done for free when you convert in to the company's money, but then and transfers are relatively cheap, but cashing out is expensive. Think of cheap as being a 1% for the transfer and a fee 5% for cashing out. Okay, and originally going from company A to company B was not possible electronically. You had to cash out and reinvest and so on. Okay, now this setup is very widespread. 4 major networks, 35% of the people use it, and it's expensive to go across networks. Now, the main company that we got the data from is called Tigo. It has 18% market share. It's the second biggest company. The first biggest is Vodacom with 53% market share. What is the thing used for? What is the network used for? It's used for remittances, person-to-person transfers. So why does this happen? Because something happens to you when you're in a remote place, and Tanzania is a pretty big place. It's as big as California, for example. It's a big country. It has practically no banks. You happen to be at the edge of the country, far away. Something happens, a shock to you, like, for example, your cow dies, and you need money. So how do you get money? You have a cousin in the capital who can send you money to be able to replace the cow, okay? This is the typical transaction. But there are other transactions too. People pay government fees, taxes, utility bills, and even salaries. Okay, but what we found is that besides this basic purpose, and besides that, then despite the fact that the interest rate is zero, half the consumers, half the users use their accounts as savings accounts, okay? That is, they deposited the money and they kept it there for 6 months, a year, and then took it out. Why? Because there are no banks, and there is no safe way to keep money. That's function one that was not planned by the network. Function two is that they used the network to transport money without sending it to others. What do I mean by that? Let's say it's Friday evening, you get paid the weekly salary, you put the money in the network, and then you move, you take the bus and go to your home, and then once you are at home, you take out the money. And why did you do that? You do it because it's unsafe in the public transportation or walking home. So they are not transferring it to anybody else. They are keeping it within their phone, and they have to pay the cash out fee, the 5%, okay? But still for them, it's preferable to do that rather than to keep cash. Okay, so these are two ways in which the network is used without it being planned to be used that way, for savings and for safekeeping of your money for short periods of time. Okay, so the main cost of the network is the agents who act as ATM machines, the agents that either fixed or roaming, who put the money in and take the money out. And this is the main marginal cost of the banking network. So, and as I said before, although the cash-in has significant marginal cost, it's provided for free, and the whole cost recovery is done through the cash-out. So the cash-out has a cost of its own, but it also has, the price has also to take into account the cost of cashing in. Okay, so we got data, very complete data, cash in, cash out, balances, whatever, location, fees, everything that we needed to get. Tanzania, here's a map, pretty big country in the eastern part of Africa. Okay, and here is the frequency of the calls. If you knew the geography of the place, all these calls are either in the rivers, the green dots, or the red dot in the capital. Okay, so we published a paper when we talked about the P2P transfers, the money self-transportation, savings, established the elasticities, and clearly the elasticities of demand are much lower when there is a long distance between the recipient and the sender, and much smaller when the two parties are close to each other. Okay, so here let me give you an idea of the fees. Here's the amounts, and here is the cash out fees underneath, and you can see they're significant. And here is the costs. The costs in the bottom, how much does it cost for a transaction to happen, cash in and cash out. And you see that these costs are significant, but of course, the fees are at least double that amount, that's the sum of the two last lines, the cash in and cash out costs. Okay, and here is the transfer fees. I wanted to show you these fees to give you an idea what happened in that network. So line one is the transfer fees within the network before we had compatibility, before we had interoperability. Line one, 350, 350, and so on. Line two is the network cash out fee 1 week before the compatibility was established. And you can see this is a much larger number, 1350, 1500, and so on. And then the network gets established. Now you can send money from A to B. There is really no cash out anymore. You can transfer money to B, and then something happens to a customer of B, and then he will cash it out there. Okay? But what is your cost? What should network A price? What would be the cash out fee price for, the transfer price for somebody in another network? So this is an out-of-network transfer at line 3, 1 week after compatibility is established. And you can see the number, it's 1700, 1850, and so on. But if you look carefully, these numbers on line 3 are exactly the sum of the first 2 rows. So essentially, the network is charging a cash out fee to customers who come from network B exactly equal to its own customers' transfer fee plus its own customers' cash out fee. So this is how it was established, and this was an agreement between the networks. There is no regulation. There was nothing of that sort. So the out-of-network fee transfer was set equal to the transfer fee in network plus the cash out fee in network, the sum of network A and network. Okay, so in terms of the model, I won't go into detail. Here is the model. It implies the following probability. Utility is A plus a function of price plus a random coefficient, random error. And here is the implied probability. We estimated using maximum likelihood. And I won't go into the details. There is not enough time to do that. But this is kind of standard way to estimate such a problem. Here is the results. The model fits very well. The intercepts, the price coefficient, and so on. Okay. Now, I want to talk about the interoperability type of issue. Okay, so we said we had this network run for 10 years without interoperability. Then interoperability is established with the prices I talked about a minute ago. Okay, so how do we assess what happens after interoperability? We need a demand function to define the consumer surplus. And this is a standard specification that we use. And what we find is that as a result of interoperability, at the prices established by the networks, consumer surplus increased by 190 million Tanzanian shillings and profit of company A by 7.3 million. And we call this the status quo because we want to consider other possible prices. Okay, so I'll show you in a second. I'll show it to you in terms of the table. Okay, so look at this table, which is central for our paper. The first line under incompatibility shows the company A's profits, 35.2 million, and in network transfers surplus 4.033 million. And then, of course, there was no out-of-network transfers. It's 0. Okay? Then look at line 2. Compatibility status quo is what the company has established. Network profits increased to 42.5 million, and the consumer surplus in the company for the customers of network A doesn't change. It's the same. But now we have an extra surplus from customers of company B. which is 190 million total on the right-hand side for 223 million. Okay, but now we want to consider various other possibilities. So possibility number one is to have across-network fees set to in-network fees. So remember, in-network fees were small. Let's make them equally small. And as you can imagine, this will cut the company's profit. So now company's profits go from 42.3 million to 36.1 million, and the surplus increases dramatically from 190 million to 246. This is the surplus of customers of company B, of network B. But there is a problem with that. Why? Because in this way, we are not allowing the network to recover its costs of cashing in and cashing out. We're forcing it to have very low fees towards customers of network B. Okay? So what if we had equal fees across any network with total network profits the same? So now we fix it so that the profits inside the network, of network A are the same as before, as status quo, 42.5 million. That doesn't work so great. So let me go to a better possibility, because I think I'm running out of time. We can discuss the possibility of in-network fees as in the status quo, but now we set up the price to out-of-network transfer equal to the in-network transfer fee plus marginal cost of cash in and cash out. And that way, the network is able to recover its costs. And then we see a moderate change in profits, 37.6 million, and a significant increase in consumer surplus, 234 million. And then we discuss some other regulatory things, which I won't go into detail about. So let me tell you the major conclusion here. Usually, if you look at industries, they either have compatibility forever, let's say like in the internet, or incompatibility forever, like the incompatibility between Windows and Apple. But in Tanzania, we had an almost unique example that compatibility was introduced after a number of years of incompatibility. And not only that, but in Tanzania, there was no regulation. So whatever happened, whatever prices were established by agreement between the various networks, okay? So they set up the prices, and we thought the prices seemed high, so we discussed various price discrimination setups, price discrimination between what happens within the network and what happens across the networks. And what we found was that setting across the network transfer fee equal to the in-network transfer fee plus cash-in cost plus cash-out cost results in a significant increase of consumer surplus over and above what the pricing of the status quo, whatever the companies have decided, and at the same time a moderate decrease in profits. And we tried other things too. I won't go into all the details of the pricing. So essentially what we try to do is try to imitate pricing in European telecommunications, in American telecommunications, and so on. We found that there are only moderate increases in consumer surplus and profits we can do. And some of them, if we tweaked it right, could be Pareto improving over the status quo. Okay, that's all I had to say. Maybe I went a bit too quickly, I'm not sure. No, I didn't go too quickly, I did well. Okay, so maybe you have some questions.
Do we have any question from the audience? Yes, Thomas. Yes, Thomas, wait to give us 1 minute, Nicholas, to get the microphone.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. And I would be interested to get a bit more information about the institutional background. So now they make these payments using the applications of these phone suppliers, but why do not other apps go into this market? For example, PayPal or Revolut and all these possibilities, which are much, much cheaper because the transaction costs in the order of magnitude of a couple of percent occur to me outrageously high compared what we are used to here in Europe.
Sorry, you came in and out. Can you say your question more clearly, slowly, so maybe I can hear it?
Like this. Okay. Like this? I simply wanted to ask about the institutional background in which those countries operate, because those phone companies which offer the services about which you are talking here have extremely high transaction costs compared to what we have in Europe. So the question is, what stops other suppliers like Revolut or PayPal to go into these markets, which at least in Europe work with much lower costs?
Okay. Okay, so let me I'll try to answer your question. You have a market without banks, okay? Banking is very limited to the capital, and even there, very few branches. So these people need to have some kind of access to money. Now, this system of agents converting money from Tanzanian shillings to telecom company A money, and then transfer within telecom company A, and then through the kiosks again to Tanzanian shillings, gives a possibility of coverage for the entire country. When you say somebody like PayPal can come in, okay, great, but what's PayPal going to do? Open branches in the countryside of Tanzania? That's impossible. I mean, it's too costly. So your proposal would be essentially for the telecom companies to allow a third party to come in and use their network. But they won't. I mean, they set up the network themselves, and they're not going to allow a third party. Additionally, I didn't say it because it was a detail, the network doesn't run on the internet. The internet is poor in Tanzania. So it runs with SMS. And despite the fact that it runs with SMS, it's still relatively secure. People don't complain about losing money through the network. So what I'm trying to say is that here, the way to think about this problem is as an oligopoly problem where you have 4 telecom networks that are all doing something similar, banking transactions, and they start with banking just with the customers, or their own telecom customers, and then they switch to banking for everybody. So, and that of course is good for demand, and so on, and we have to find the appropriate prices. And there, because of no regulation, we started with the privately set prices, and our paper considers various regulatory interventions in pricing. I'm sorry, I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikos. Yannis, you have a question? Yannis Takmazidis.
Yes. Maybe expanding a bit the question addressed earlier. Do you have other paradigms from other countries, from Africa or elsewhere in the world, that they use different or similar, maybe similar paradigms of how they try to develop this interoperability? And on the other hand, just maybe, do you believe that big tech companies as well as banks wouldn't be or are not interested because of potential profitability that they don't employ their business in Africa, for instance? Sorry for this.
Yeah,
It's 1.5
sure.
questions.
Yeah. Okay, so in other countries, first of all, the major country that was the first one to do mobile banking of the sort I'm describing was Kenya. In Kenya, the Vodacom has 85% of the market, so it's really dominant. So it has no reason to be interoperable with anybody else. So it's kind of a special case. There in Tanzania, there was some competition, so there was the possibility of interoperability. And one detail I didn't say is that Vodacom did not do interoperability, which is still the biggest company in Tanzania, but with not such a big market share, with about 50% market share. The smaller companies, the three smaller companies in Tanzania, did interoperability among them. Okay, I would like very much, Yanni, to be able to find other cases everywhere in the world. Now, it's not so easy to find data and find other cases. In this particular case, we were helped by the Gates Foundation, which has a big presence in Tanzania for other reasons, to find us data. But I would be very interested to analyze other data from other countries as well. What was the second? Your second question was?
Are they big companies, in order maybe to facilitate developments through this, are they interested or because of low profitability? And I understand that these banks and networks you mentioned earlier, they are owned by locals. Is that right?
That's right. These networks, I mean, the banks are, you call them banks if you want. They're local. Now, look, in this business, the big profitable market is remittances from the developed world to the developing world, like from the United States to Mexico, from Europe and the United States to Tanzania, to Kenya, and so on. These markets are huge and very, very, very profitable, okay? They are not this market. So I remember when I first presented this paper, various American companies, I won't mention them, were very much interested to get the data. So I told them, look, I'm sorry, the data is for academic reasons. I cannot give it to you. So why? They were very interested to find the demand and estimate the demand and try to apply it to international transfers. So that market is where the American companies and the European companies are very much interested, because it's a very big market, much bigger than within the countries, and it's very profitable because there are only few providers, 3, 4 at most. If I manage to get the data, I would very much like to be able to write a paper on that market as well. But this market is interesting and unique because it allowed for these banking transactions 15 years ago, when we didn't have such a framework in the United States and Europe. Thank you.
Maybe next, may I suggest, with all due respect, next country to be Nigeria or something that maybe has some material to do your
study. Whatever data I can get, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicholas, for your thoughtful presentation.
Thank you.
We see you
Take care.
soon in New York.
See you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we conclude the scientific part of the conference at this moment. I have a couple, 3 comments. First comment is some certificates of attendance are missing. So I have the responsibility. You will receive it by mail till the end of the week. Number two, before next week, probably by Monday or Tuesday, we'll have the volume of proceedings ready. It is ready, but we have to make the corrections now with unpresented papers, take them out. And we upload it in the website of the conference to stay there for 5 years. And then we invite you to submit your full article for possible publication in a special volume edited by Springer. We can accommodate about 50 articles. There is a committee consisting of 6 academics from the organizing committee. They have the responsibility to evaluate the articles and send them for publication. I highly recommend, if you are interested, this volume is going to be submitted for indexation on Scopus, and we'll take the indexation, there's no problem. And for others willing to publish in other journals, please send the full article of your presentation adjusted to the journal of your choice, and we'll promote it to be published in one of the journals supporting the conference. Now, in a little while, we have a meeting with the rector of this university, the rectors and the representatives of several different universities. First, to say hello and a few words if you want. And second, to sign a scientific agreement we have prepared for you. If you don't agree, no problem. Yes, you want to say something, Salva? My good friend Solomon is asking if he can get in contact with Nicholas. Yes, Solomon? Okay, yes. Okay, you live in New York, Nicholas is in New York, so why not? Nicholas, a guy from...
Yes?
Yes, is asking if he can meet you somewhere in New York. I said, yes, of course.
Yeah, he should send me email.
Yeah, I'll give you his email, okay, and you can get in contact with him. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So, Nicholas, we don't have anything else with you. You can leave us, or if you want to say something, you are very welcome.
No, thank you very much. Thank you, Eleftherios. Thank you again.
Nicholas,
Take
make
care.
a note. Next year will be in a European city. I don't announce it here publicly, but I know you like that city. So we invite you to participate in person this time.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, very good.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I
Take care.
inform you on time. Okay, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so 40 or 50. Bye-bye. Yannis, okay. 40 or 50 articles is going to be accommodated they're going to be accommodated in this volume. So please send the full article adjusted to the template of the journal, and we take care of it. Okay. So we take a break now. Relax. The gala dinner will be outside here at 7 o'clock. But from now till 7, let's organize a little bit the visit to the rector of this university. Okay, for those who are interested. Thank you very much for being here. And tomorrow morning we have a workshop. They have planned to announce the establishment of a network of an institute on Mindful Consumption Institute. You are all invited to participate. We may ask for participants if you want to be a member or something. We're going to have discussions till 12:30. 12:30, we're going to have lunch here, and then we go back to the hotel, change clothes, relax a little bit, and after 3 o'clock, we take the buses and we go to the desert for dinner. More details tonight when the responsible person will be here to verify this event. Thank you again for being here. We enjoy the conference, and thank you very much again. Thank you, sir. You're great. Thank you.
Tomorrow you're here, right?
Yes, tomorrow morning. But now the conference has finished. Now we'll start. Tomorrow we'll start the work.
Thank you very much. See you, inshallah.